There, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 ACSA Vice President Candidate Forum. I'm Naj Alikhan. Over the next hour, we will introduce you to the four school leaders, four ACSA members who are running for state ACSA Vice President. For those of you who are watching, the candidate that wins this position has a direct line to the ACSA presidency, which is why this position is so important, not only for our current executive board, but for the future of this organization. In just a moment, we'll introduce the four candidates. We'll actually have all four of them introduce themselves, and then we'll come back. We'll give you some instructions on how today's show will work. And then at the end, we'll go into the question and answer session. So we'll start with the introductions. We'll go in alphabetical order by last name. We'll go down to Southern California and Joe Austin.
Hi, my name is Joe Austin. I am a Poway Unified employee. I support career and technical education as a career education specialist. And I support Region 18 and excited to have a lot of wind in my sails for my colleagues here there.
And Jonathan.
Good afternoon, ACSA family. My name is Jonathon Brunson. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Relations here in Milpitas Unified School District in Santa Clara County, also known as Region 8. Good to see everybody.
And Erin.
So good afternoon. I'm Erin Simon, Director of Student Support Services from the Long Beach Unified School District and also proud member of ACSA Region 14. I am so happy to be with you all today. Thank you.
And Ed.
Hi, my name is Ed Trimis. I'm the principal at Legacy Visual and Performing Arts High School, a small arts high school in Southgate, California, part of Los Angeles Unified School District. We're in the southeast part of the city, and we are part of Region 16 of ACSA. Good afternoon.
And thanks to all of you. So folks that are watching, here's how everything is going to go. We have 8 questions that have been assembled by ACSA leaders. Having 8 questions and having 4 candidates allows everybody to be able to answer 2 questions first and 2 questions last, which is exactly how we're going to go. All of our candidates will answer all 8 questions. The way it will work is we will go in alphabetical order. So Joe Austin will be first to answer questions 1 and 5. Jonathon Brunson will be answering first for questions 2 and 6. Erin Simon will be answering first for questions 3 and 7. And Ed Trimis will be answering first for questions 4 through 8. We've asked our candidates to put their answers together between 60 and 90 seconds. After we have gone through the 8 questions, we will go ahead and answer any questions that have come in from the field, either during today's broadcast or before our broadcast came on. Again, we will answer in alphabetical order. We will give each candidate 60 to 90 seconds to respond. Once those questions have been answered, we'll give everybody an opportunity for 60 seconds of closing remarks before we end the show. And of course, if you only catch part of our candidate forum, or if you're just here at the beginning or at the end, we of course will have the entire candidate forum available for you, taped and recorded on the ACSA Resource Hub. So to our 4 candidates, good luck to you. Let's go ahead and start with our first question. Joe Austin will be our first speaker. The first question, tell us about your ACSA experience from when you became a member until now, and what drove you to become a member.
Well, last November marked my 20th anniversary as an ACSA member, having joined during the very first class meeting of my administrative credential program at San Diego State. Our professor, Dr. Bill Streschley, started our class the class meeting by handing out membership applications while he discussed the importance of being a part of ACSA. He promised us that ACSA membership would enhance our careers as educational leaders and then waited patiently for us to complete our applications. Since that time, I've held a variety of leadership positions in ACSA, including work at the charter, region, and state levels. I started out on the Secondary Ed Council. I was a regional vice president of legislative action. I've attended 10 or more legislative action days. I was the regional president for Region 18. I was part of the Leadership Summit Planning Committee. I'm the current state board member for Region 18. And last year, I was a member of the Mental Wellness Task Force. Currently, part of my board duties is also to be the board representative on the Co-Administrator Committee. Over the past 20 years, I've built strong relationships throughout the ACSA network. Initially, in my job-alike council work, But as I got more involved in ACSA and began participating in delegate assemblies, ACSA academies, and conferences, those relationships expanded to other regions throughout the state. In fact, I've been friends with Jonathon Brunson since we both served on the Leadership Summit Planning Committee back in 2010. I could not possibly have imagined, as an aspiring administrator back in 1999, just how big of an impact ACSA membership would have on my career. But I am forever grateful to Dr. Streschley for encouraging me to join.
And Jonathan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to start off first by paying my respects to two equity leaders that we just lost recently. Eric Witherspoon and Edwin Jarvis. They started work that we need to continue. So my condolences to their families, as well as all their friends here in ACSA. We miss you, but we have people that will carry on your work in your memory. Like Joe, I've been in ACSA for 22 years now. I've served in 11 different positions. It all started when Superintendent Wally Hallbreck hired me in the little town of Winters and said, congratulations on being assistant principal, and you are now part of ACSA. I didn't know what it meant, so I had to do my homework. I soon found out that ACSA was about serving students and celebrating like every student succeeding, admin of the year, advocating at the Capitol, and all the professional development that comes with that. I soon wanted to get involved and see the other side of ACSA, which is serving others. So I became a membership chair in YOLO charter and hello YOLO and Region 3, and then ascended up through the ranks to be president of that charter, and then got involved with Region. At the Region, I did the same thing. I got involved as a vice president of Ledge Action, where we looked at different candidates to support our students at the Capitol, and then soon became the vice president, president-elect, and then president of Region 3. Also got to serve on the board, and it was a wonderful experience. I was also nominated to be on the executive committee with the board, which is a high-level position of confidentiality, and I really appreciated the support, and I was humbled by that. I've served on the planning committee for the state summit 4 times, and I was actually the conference co-chair a couple of years ago with Catherine Castleberry, and we did great work together. It was a lot of fun. I've taken advantage of everything that ACSA has to offer, with the academies, being in the HR Academy, the Superintendent's Academy, attending symposiums for HR and negotiations, and just looking out for our members. I've been a member for, like I said, 22 years, and I look forward to many more years to come, and supporting women in leadership and network from the very beginning, our LGBTQ community as well, and CALSA. And it's all about serving our students, and it's about serving leadership, and it's just time for me to give back at another level. Thank you.
Erin.
I think for me, joining ACSA, I guess it stems back from my work in the beginning as when I was a teacher at Crenshaw High School many moons ago. And it was my first, position as a teacher. I was just 23 years of age, and I was thrown to the wolves. And I saw many kids who were in very difficult situations, and I felt as though there were not much support that were happening within that school site. And so for me, I was always looking for something just to help me in my role, and also in my role as I was considering moving into administration. Moving into a new district, I then went to the Redondo Beach Unified School District, and my superintendent was adamant that all members of his organization, at least the educational leaders, need to be a part of ACSA. So he paid for the dues for principals, directors, and up. And from there, I began to learn more about ACSA and just became enthralled with many of the advocacy standpoints and priorities that ACSA was taking at that time. From that time, I had a great mentor who was a retiree within ACSA. Her name is Robin Geisler. I hope she's on this webinar today. And I always thank her because she allowed me to see ACSA from a different lens. She, at that time, was the Educational Options Council president. And I remember seeing her article in the paper. It's about the advocacy that she was doing, meeting with legislators, just advocating for the most invisible students, I believe, in education. And I called her and I said, you know what, how can I be a part of this? How can I be involved? And I was invited to a meeting. From there, I was voted as a regional representative on that council, and began to learn more and more about best practices, especially in my new role as a principal. And from there, I became the Educational Options Council president. We took that work to a different level. We began to devise these road trips to meet with legislators across the state to talk about the work that we felt was needed within alternative education. And not just that, just an education period, more funding, better teacher preparation, and things of that nature. So ACSA has allowed me to be the person who I am today in regards to leadership. Understanding the priorities, understanding what's important, understanding that when it comes to serving kids, this is our job. And we must continue in that way, but learning more and more about the role and what that is. So I can see my role shifting into the ACSA Vice President, just elevating that stance and that role to ensure that all students are accounted for and advocated for as well.
And Ed. Oh, Ed, give us just a moment there, Ed. It looks like you might be muted. There we go.
I'm unmuted. So thank you so much. It's awesome going last, and I get to sort of hear what everyone else has said. Just like the others, I had been in ACSA a long time, early 2000s, I believe. And I was also encouraged to join from a co-administrator from another ACSA member who said, hey, you need to really do this. And so I've been a proud member of ACSA for that many years. I was on the board for 3 years, one term, and it was just an awesome experience. And I just really wanted to take my ACSA duties and my ACSA responsibilities to the next level. And when I was on the board, I was also on the Secondary Ed Council and trying to connect our school district a little more to ACSA. We're always trying to build up our membership. And ACSA has just been great for me. I think it's helped fine-tune my skills as an administrator. And I think one of the things that I've loved the most about it is it really so aligned with what my goals have been my entire career, closing gaps. And it's aligned with the research I did when I was going to USC, and it's aligned with what my mission has been for all these years. And so I'm very happy to be part of ACSA. And the Superintendent's Academy is awesome too, by the way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ed, and all of our candidates. Jonathon, we'll go ahead and start with you for question 2. How has ACSA helped you? And if you are elected, how does that shape your goals for the organization?
Thank you. It's always been about service leadership and building relationships with people up and down, not just in your region, but your districts and the charters and across the state. So my philosophy aligns very well with ACSA and the mission statement that we have now. In fact, when I was on the board representing Region 3, we were tasked with putting this new mission statement together. And I think it needs to be read because I think it's something that we need to commit to because it's focused on our students. So the Association of California School Administrators is a driving force for an equitable world-class education system and the development and the support of inspired educational leaders who we need to bring in the diverse needs as well for all of our California students. So we are the student voice. We need our local government agencies to hear our voice and to take that statement and those ideas to the Capitol. My campaign has been titled Together We Rise. So we rise for our students and we rise for each other and then we rise for education, right? So every decision that we make, it has to be based on what's best for our students. ACSA has afforded me to attend many, like I said, state conferences and summits and symposiums and the professional development along with my peers and the HR and superintendent's academies. Everything aligns to why we are here, which is to close that opportunity gap and to support our students at Promise, right? So Ledge Action Days are a huge influence where we get to go to the Capitol. We didn't get to go this year, but our voice is still heard through our governmental relations team and through emails and phone calls. So when they make these budgetary decisions that impact our 6.3 million students, we need to be there. And so it all aligns very well. With every student succeeding, their stories are what remind us of our why and our mission statement. So everything starts to make sense. Their resiliency is second to none. And our toughest days, I recommend everybody go to the ACSA website and just play a couple of those stories. And you will not only be inspired, you will be wanting to get up to work and get after it. So as we move forward with this current situation, we will rely on each other, ACSA, and we'll guide through distance learning, and we'll focus on equity of service for all of our students, and we'll work to do whatever it takes to ensure that our students do get that world-class education. And I just made this up this morning. but distance learning, if this is how we have to look to get the work done, we will do this because we're ACSA. So I appreciate everybody, and we have much work to do, and we'll take care of business. So thank you.
And Erin.
I think, for me, I always came from a stance of equity, and I tell folks maybe it was based on my upbringing and, my environment when I was younger. I always tell folks the story, I grew up in South LA, and although I was afforded opportunities to attend, the best schools and had different options, I think more so than my friends in the neighborhood had, I saw the inequities in education, right? I saw the advantage that I had, and I saw the disadvantage that my friends had. So for me, becoming a teacher was very natural because I wanted to give back to students. I felt that students, no matter their zip code, right? Because I was one of those students, could move forward and thrive. And I think with becoming more involved with ACSA, I still, stand on this stance, right? So yesterday, today, and forevermore, the work that I see, it will be twofold. And ACSA has helped me really understand that. And that is serving students well and removing barriers so that each student can move forward and thrive. When you look at, education, there has been legislation pendulum that has swung back and forth for students. You see that students who are forced with formidable barriers that are inhibiting their academic and personal success. But I think as educational leaders, right, I see myself as one of these people. We have expressed that our jobs have gotten harder because we're grappling with all these different education reforms and with societal problems that have now infiltrated their way into the school system in so many ways. And so with ACSA gives me an opportunity to branch out to other leaders who may be in the same situation that I am, who are thinking of innovative and creative ways to help our students to deal with the changing targets and accountability that we talk about. And many things are so challenging and distracting to doing the things that help us do the job, which is teaching and educating students. So I'm grateful. I just had a meeting with our Educational Options Council this morning. We went through some best practices as we're reopening schools, as we're providing services to schools. And this is what ACSA helps me with. And not just me, but with everybody. It helps us come together, discuss innovative and creative ways, especially when we haven't received the best guidance from maybe our federal government to help us with these things, but we can all lean on each other to discuss ways to help our students just be better, no matter their zip code, no matter where they're from, and no matter their circumstances. Thank you.
And Ed. Ed, make sure you unmute yourself.
I've only done like a million Zoom meetings. Sorry. So I think ACSA has helped me really be a stronger administrator across the board. It's helped me continue to focus on students, and it's helped me really reinforce what my goals have been all the time. And that is, we need to focus on the students. We need to make sure students are successful. And one of the best ways to do that is to support local schools, school leaders, and they are supportive teachers, because teachers make the biggest influence on a kid's life. And this is the work that I had always done, and ACSA is right aligned with that work. And I think moving forward with ACSA, we need to continue that work. We need to close gaps. We need to support every child in the system. And one of the best ways to do that is to support those school leaders that are making it happen for their teachers. Without that support, it just doesn't happen. And I've seen that, as a school principal from the ground up, and what a difference it makes in the lives of the kids if they get that support. And this is what we need to continue to do as ACSA. We are an organization that are student advocates. We need to support kids. And one of the best ways we can do that is to support local leaders and teachers. And that's what we need to do. And that's what I would commit to doing in the future.
And Joe.
First, I want to say I recognize what a privilege it is to represent your region, in this case, Region 18, whether that's as a committee member or on the ACSA Board of Directors. For me, ACSA membership's always provided a much needed sense of objectivity in a career that is usually conspicuously absent objectivity. I've always valued the opportunity to calibrate with ACSA staff and member colleagues, to share experiences and co-create solutions. Erin sort of alluded to this too, and for me, this pandemic has really highlighted the important role that the ACSA network has played always in my career. For weeks now, educators have been blazing innovative new trails in distance learning and student services, and they've been doing it in the most isolated conditions imaginable. I mean, educational leadership is a lonely job to begin with, so it's extraordinary to see what we've been able to accomplish almost overnight, working from our homes and without any face-to-face contact with our learning communities. ACSA has been an invaluable asset during this pandemic, and it's reassuring to know that their incredible staff are helping our state's educational leaders navigate this pandemic. And they're able to play that role, not just because they have their own personal expertise, but because they also have the institutional knowledge that every ACSA member has helped them build. This is what I mean when you hear me talk about collective efficacy, that the whole of this organization is truly greater than the sum of its parts. As a state officer, my goals would be to include promoting the vital work that school leaders do in every opportunity. Sharing ACSA success stories and explaining the extraordinary opportunities that ACSA membership provides to potential members. In addition, I'd promote opportunities to grow involvement for members, because I want every ACSA member to have an ACSA story that's as rich and rewarding for them as mine has been for me.
Erin, you're going to go ahead and start this next question for us. This is question 3. ACSA's priority is student advocacy. How do you see ACSA continuing to push for student advocacy?
Well, if I recall, I believe it was on February 22nd, 2019, ACSA's board adopted a legislative platform, called One Voice, which highlights 10 advocacy priorities. I believe the priorities call for ACSA to take action to confront barriers that limit the success of historically underserved students, and advocate for policies and practices that result in equitable educational outcomes for all students. So simply, my campaign calls for an elevation of a few of these priorities, specifically amid school closures, which have further exposed opportunity gaps. So I think, therefore, it is even more critical that ACSA harnesses the power of its collective advocacy. And then my thoughts around how ACSA could elevate its advocacy fall in 5 buckets. And that is social emotional learning and student mental health. All the more important in the current moment. Many district leaders that I have spoken to are bracing for an increase in the already skyrocketing demand for SEL and mental health support. We know that when students come back, they're going to need way more support than what they left with. Of course, access, continuity, and sustainability, which affects the state's most pronounced subgroups. When you look at students of color, homeless and foster youth, low socioeconomically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, which also include those students in our rural areas. The technology, the digital divide. So 21st century learning absolutely requires access to technology and internet. And then COVID-19 has further underscored the inequities within the digital divide. And I believe that ACSA should advocate for just more funding or just federal E-rate programs just to be modified that can help our students who are in lower income communities to access technology and internet. I can go on about funding for IDEA, early childhood education on Title I, Title II, Title IV, and Title V. Many of our students are going to kind of come in and be significantly needier and playing catch up in the aftermath after COVID-19. I believe this will also support students recovering from learning loss. And then funding just to meet the extraordinary needs, Joe alluded to this, of our students. I know during the Great Recession, we had ARA, which in 2009, which provided approximately $77 billion in stimulus funding for pre-K through 12 education. Nearly $7 billion of those funds were allocated to California. The recently enacted stimulus legislation known as the CARES Act only dedicates about $13.5 billion to pre-K to 12 education, with about $1.65 billion allocated to California's pre-K through 12 systems. This allocation is woefully underfunded, everybody. And it's not nearly enough to meet the extraordinary needs of our students who are struggling to cope with the wide-ranging effects of COVID-19. We need to raise these concerns to the federal government leadership just to secure additional rounds of educational stimulus, I think, that are commensurate with the enormous challenges that our school systems face now and will face in the days ahead.
Ed.
I think along the same lines, first of all, I gotta use part of my 60, 90 seconds. So great, your responses. And it's very easy to say, yeah, what she said, because that's awesome. I fully agree with everything Erin says. We need to advocate at the state level. We need to get the funding that our kids deserve. And I think we need to continue to keep our focus on the students. And sometimes there's a discussion, and I've heard this I was on the board. What is ACSA? What does ACSA do? Are we a superintendent's organization? Are we helping districts? We're here to support kids. And really the best way to do that is to get them the resources, get the districts and the schools what they need. And this is how we need to continue to push. We have to push for equity and funding. We have to push for closing gaps. We have to push for keeping our focus on the students. Unfortunately, many times in this equation, students are not the topic of conversation. Students are not the focus, and they really have to be. If you've been in this system for any number of years, you've seen there are gaps and there are inequities, and we need to keep struggling. We need to keep fighting to close those gaps. Technology, funding, and this is how we keep the focus on the students.
Joe Austin.
I think historically speaking, ACSA has advocated for students in so many ways, from our comprehensive mission statement and strategic plan through the work of committees and councils via professional growth opportunities, focus on student support, scholarships and recognition for students who've risen above adversity, and the ongoing work of government relations and legislative action at the ground roots. I think a newer opportunity, and Erin already talked about this a little bit, for ACSA to advocate for students and adult members is in the area of mental wellness. As a member of ACSA's Mental Wellness Task Force, I was so impressed by both the dedication and the extensive experience that our members brought to that year-long endeavor. It's always been my experience with ACSA professional growth that the experts are in the room, and that was certainly not an exception. Currently, our members have so much to contribute to this discussion as we recognize that site leaders have truly become the new first responders in the field of K-12 mental wellness. The task force analyzed a broad range of tools to support mental wellness, from a well-defined multi-tiered system of support to social emotional learning resources, mindfulness, and trauma-informed practices. Members of the task force compiled a toolkit of resources and a list of legislative policy recommendations. So as this curve of the pandemic flattens and we begin to plan for returning to physical learning spaces, we need to better understand some of the confounding variables that students have been placed under in distance learning. In short, student voice is more important than ever, and I believe that this mental wellness toolkit and the policy recommendations developed by the task force will greatly enhance student ACSA's ability to advocate for students moving forward.
And Jonathon.
Of the 8 questions we got, this is my favorite. It's our moral imperative to take care of our students. We wake up every day knowing that there are challenges out there that may seem impossible, but when you look around and see what's going on, anything is possible. So we advocate, we're their voice in our districts, in our charters, in our regions, and across the state. Our students of promise need us more than ever before. And that's what I think my colleagues have just been talking about, is the access and the equity of what's going on within a school day and across the districts that we all serve. We advocate for students and we share their stories. And we do this with every student succeeding. How about the student that we just read about in EdCal, Kyle Vallone in Capistrano? He created a 3D project with a shield that would protect our first responders. Or even last night at our board meeting, we honored 4 students for their work that they're doing during the shelter in place. Nyla Choate, she has a nonprofit where she wrote a book called My Root is Rich, and it's for Read for a Cause. And Amy, she put together a nonprofit project called Maskify. And Kate Lee, she does a nonprofit called Corona Covery. and then Isabel Morrison for a nonprofit in Milpitas where they give back to our families in need. These are the reasons we wake up every morning. Our students do amazing things, and we need to share their stories because our work is hard. You work very hard every day. And I think we're all Zoomed out and Google Meetsed out like crazy. But when we see these stories of our students, that's why we advocate. So we won't ever give up on our students. We will share our best practices with each other. We will work together with the California Collaborative on Educational Excellence. And it starts, with the equity lens, right? In the following areas like PD, technology access, interventions, meeting the social emotional needs of our students, the trauma, grading, our summer programs, special education, adult ed, early child education, and how do we bring all this back when we start anew for the next school year. So our governmental relations team is all about students, and they are in the hallways every day advocating for our students. And people sometimes ask me, why'd you join ACSA? And I see my fee is going towards these people because I know who they are. They have children in our schools, and then they are there for us. And everything else that ACSA gives us is a bonus. And so I want to leave with just knowing that I know all four of us as candidates believe that every decision that we make starts with what's best for our students. And so that's what we do, and that's in our mission statement. Thank you.
All right, Ed, you get to start off with question 4. The question is, public education has been forced to change so much during the COVID-19 pandemic. What lessons have you learned over the past 6 weeks as districts have had to pivot to new ways of supporting students?
Yes, it has changed quite a bit. And I think one of the things that was very clear to me is how important our core mission is and how important communication is. It's all about communication. And so what I found is we've been able to up our game to communicate even better with families, with students, with teachers. And anyone that has had to challenge with that in the past, it was still a challenge. If you had trouble getting through to a kid when he's right in front of you in the classroom, even more of a challenge when you're trying to get through to the kid through a Zoom camera. So this has been a challenge, and I think schools have had and districts have had to pivot. How do you up the communication game? We've done several things like at my district where the professional development is just extended like crazy. All of our teachers are getting trained. I developed an online website that has lots of resources and videos and information for our families. We have parent request forms that are online. All this stuff is online, and the communication is really so great. We're connecting with students, and this is important. Districts have to communicate. You have to get through to the kids. One of the things I have to do before the end of the day actually is send my list to the district of the kids that we have not been in communication with, because we have PSA counselors going to be sending out letters and making calls and helping us just like they would when we're actually on campus. Because unfortunately, there's a small number of kids that we just can't get through to them. And so we need to reach all those kids. And I think this is what schools have had to do. We have to go a lot, get our online training going, our online meetings going, and really step up our communication game. And after we get through to the kids, we can teach them something. If you can't connect with kids and teachers, you're sunk. So the connection is the first thing, communication is the first thing. The next thing is, how are you actually imparting knowledge? How are you developing? How are they doing? How are they running teaching and learning from PD to curriculum to everything else? So that's what we're doing.
Joe.
Well, we were speaking before this call started with staff and my candidate colleagues. I've got 2 children in elementary school, 1 in middle school, and my wife is a middle school teacher. So the last 6 weeks have redefined multitasking in our house. As my wife and I partner to engage our own kids in their distance learning, as my wife creates and delivers distance learning experiences for her middle school students, and I work to support distance learning efforts by the dozens of teachers and site leaders I support in Poway Unified. Finding a balance in all of this under one roof with limited access to technology and bandwidth has proven to be a huge challenge for us. And we're both educators, so I can't imagine how challenging this quarantine is for families who have fewer resources or lack the opportunity to work from home. For both of us, this pandemic has highlighted the prolonged reality of the digital divide. And it's removed any doubt about the logic of providing students with one-to-one technology and ensuring that they have internet access. Also, that teachers are trained to integrate and utilize distance learning tools to create meaningful learning experiences. Most nights, after our kids have gone to bed, our discussions turn to the topic of finding a balance between staying healthy as a family, keeping our kids engaged in their own learning, and supporting learning in our respective careers. As I'm sure is the case in many homes of late, the days seem longer than ever before. But we're finding a way to create routines that work for our family. Overall, as exhausting and stressful as this pandemic has been, it's also provided a steady supply of inspiration as parents, teachers, and school leaders team in unprecedented ways to make sure that kids feel connected.
Jonathon.
Got a few more minutes.
Lessons learned. You know, I love the fact how our district rallied for our students and all of our teachers and staff here in Milpitas. We are basically seeing what's going on across the state. We were asked to pretty much fly an airplane, and we were given the helm at 30,000 feet. And so we were all busy just moving as quick as we can to find out all the information necessary to support our students. So simultaneously, we're doing all this communication from up and down the state, within our districts, across the regions. And it starts with great leadership. Our superintendent, Cheryl Jordan, has done a marvelous job of navigating through the county and through the state to support each and every one of the 10,300 students that we have here in Milpitas. Our teachers are checking in with students right away before we even give a lesson, you know, maintaining those relationships, making them feel safe. Tech services, we were prepared. We were able to give out over 1,000 Chromebooks within the first week and exchange ones that weren't working. But we did see around the state where there was some inequity in that, and that was painful. So we're not in this just for our district, we're in it for all of our students. You know, food services, how do you get all the people in place to make sure that their safety is taken care of, as well as our families, so that they can have a meal and we don't interrupt that service. They've done phenomenal work, but there's still great work to be done. Making sure our staff is safe, you know, our maintenance and operation food service staff, that when they come to work, do they have all the materials to do their work and to take care of our families and each other. You know, we're hearing updates all the time from the county and the state and CDE and ACSA. That's so appreciative. We're working alongside our associations to ensure their safety and coming to work and the essential assignments and what is it going to take so that we can deliver world-class education in a way that we've never had to experience before. So these conversations are ongoing, and because we have to move so fast, we need to recalibrate our efforts and ensure that equity and services are in place, not just for Milpitas, but you know, when we're running for this office, we have to have that big lens, right, for the entire state. So our employees from across the state and the district, they know how to help us, and they will continue to help us. So when we have students coming forward with service projects, you know, like making masks and donations, that's such a joy to see how we're responding. So I think we leave this with, what are the questions that we have to ask to push ourselves as we move forward? What are the strategies and best practices for distant learning? How do we align those so that there is equity across the state? How do we ensure that there's access to technology and Wi-Fi? And how do we stay connected to our students and to each other? We don't know when this is going to end, and we don't know if it's going to come back. We're hearing different things every day. How do we put interventions in place that are going to allow students, all students, to get the services they need? And you know, our students with disabilities, our grading policies, all of this pandemic has taught us that we need to recalibrate, and we're going to be stronger for it, and we'll keep our students at the center and focus for all of our decisions moving forward.
And Erin.
Well, I think that, you know, due to school closings, due to the coronavirus concerns, it has turned a spotlight on financial and resource disparities, you know, between district schools and individual students, and how they contribute to educational and income equality in the nation. But with that being said, you know, we have many districts who have been very innovative and creative, and who have even been more empathetic and sympathetic in understanding about some of the challenges that many of our students face. But with that, before COVID-19, we always talked about how important relationships and connections are with families, with our students and families. And COVID-19 even further kind of highlights and underscores just how important relationships and connections are. So, if you already had a certain connection with the family or with the student, maybe easier to tap in to reach them. And, for those students that we did not have connections with, from what I'm hearing, even from myself, and I'm calling families, these are the families that have made it more difficult to get in contact with. Also, the importance of leadership, with many of our district superintendents who provided great communication and guidance through these uncharted waters. I think it's significant as well. Those districts who had great leaderships have been able to change into online distance learning overnight, have been able to provide professional development for teachers and staff, counselors overnight, have been able to put new platforms and systems in overnight. So it speaks to leadership and how we, get through these hard times. And I think the third one that I want to really focus on and highlight is putting the basic needs in so many ways before academics, right? We have this terminology now, Maslow before we bloom. And if we don't take of the physiological needs of our students before academics, we're going to see ourselves in more problems to where students are not going to connect. So I can say even from a district standpoint, from the Long Beach Unified stance, when we're checking in with our students, it's not so much of a push of, hey, I see you haven't participated in online distance learning. The first question that comes out of our mouths is, how are you? How is your family? How can we assist you? Do you need any resources? Do you need food? How is housing? And from that, we've also created a COVID-19 resource guide, which is on our district website and will be updated as soon as we get new resources in to connect with their families. So I think as far as the change and how we've kind of pivoted in supporting students, moving to more online platforms, providing telehealth, and really looking at things from an equitable lens. Who needs low-cost internet? Who needs Wi-Fi packets? Who needs a Chromebook? Who needs food? And if a family cannot pick up food every day, how can we get that family food for the week? Even tapping into our homeless shelters. We have local shelters in Long Beach. I know our child nutrition services is providing food to those families. So it's looking at each child individually and making sure that from an equity standpoint, we are serving each student in the right and appropriate way. Thank you.
All right, and we definitely want to thank the group that is watching our broadcast live here. This is the 2020 ACSA Vice President Candidate Forum. I just want to let our candidates know that we are 42 minutes into our broadcast, so we'll try and make things as concise as possible as we hit the back end of our broadcast. Jill, we'll go ahead and start with you for question 5, which is, when we think about COVID-19, what do you think ACSA should focus on during this pandemic?
Well, Naj, I'll start by saying that I'm really proud of the work that ACSA is already doing during the pandemic. I've been tuning in to the weekly ACSA Facebook Live sessions, and it's so impressive what Wes and the ACSA staff have done to provide timely updates, analysis, and guidance to school and district leaders, even after closing their own offices and working largely from home. Recently, those Facebook Live sessions have included and featured inspiring stories of our membership's leadership. And I think that's a welcome addition that for me symbolizes some stabilization, some much anticipated stabilization. By initially focusing on the most urgent needs early on, ACSA's kind of afforded us an opportunity now to reflect and celebrate the progress and the momentum that we've created in supporting distance learning. Moving forward, I think ACSA has to leverage that momentum to help shape the conversations about the how and the when schools will welcome staff and students back to the physical learning space. Not just the conversations about logistics, but enlisting members' expertise in the area of trauma-informed practices that will recognize and help account for just how hard this period of quarantine has been on our students and the adults that have served them. These uncommon times, as Wes's Facebook Live is titled, have created a common purpose around social emotional learning and trauma-informed care. We discussed these topics in great detail as a task force last year, but we recognized at the time that we were all in different places. That was then. Now I think we're all in the same boat. So, every crisis, this one included, presents an opportunity. And I believe that the policy recommendations for mental wellness couldn't have come at a better time. It's a critical issue facing education for both students and adults. And I believe ACSA should make it a top priority moving forward.
Jonathon.
So I think the number one thing is that we need to stay connected more than ever, and I think we are. I agree. We're doing town hall chats. Our superintendent has leaded that with all of our employees, so we can check in and just see how people are doing, and then what services can we do to help you with your work, and just to acknowledge each other. And then our principals are doing principal chats, like fireside chats, and it really is trying to have that human element going along with all the work that everybody's doing, and it's hard. I see the faces sometimes, and we have single parents who are raising children and working from home and trying to do an IEP, or they're driving their car and they're going someplace to take care of the needs of a family, and yet they're doing an SST. And so these are incredible times. So ACSA, but continue to showcase the positives that everybody's doing, because I think that lifts everybody up. And our student achievement and their well-being from distant learning, we're going to have to keep that in the forefront of our decision making as we move forward, because we don't know when this is going to end or if it's going to come back. Everything starts with equity, right? So with having access to all of the resources necessary should be the first consideration of our ledge action folks, but here in our districts. And I know that's on our minds everywhere, and we want to make sure our staff and students get the necessary support. So ACSA can continue to do the great work, supporting, like we have a webinar tomorrow on special education and how to support our students and staff with that. So that's going to be well received. Technology and making sure that we have Wi-Fi, access for our families so that they can get online and look at the rich resources that are out there. Looking at our school calendar, how are we going to open up the school year, and what's that going to look like? Will we have local control? A lot of questions. How do we support our low-income students? Not just with the free and reduced meals, but just the navigating the things that they don't have that other families do, and that's why there is that opportunity gap. But that's why ACSA exists, and that's why our teachers and our support staff make such a difference each and every day. And I hear about it, and the well-being of our staff is important. We initiated an employee assistance program the last month because it has taken a toll on families, because, we got in this profession, we'll call it a vocation, right? So that we can be with people and encourage and motivate and inspire. And that's hard to do digitally, but people are doing great work, but it's hard. And then you couple that with the stuff that we're all dealing with on a daily basis. So that's important. And if you don't know or have an EAP program, go to our website at Milpitas. You can see some of the things that we put into place to support our staff, all of our employees. And then, working with our associations has to continue. We got to focus on the childcare aspect, and then it all comes down to funding. And we're all worried, what's that going to look like? And so what AVID does is we have a foot at the door, we have a seat at the table, and that's important. And our leaders are invested because they have children too, and they care deeply about all of our members. And so we should continue to support our councils and committees with a common message. Let's be a force in that task force when it comes to developing what are the best avenues for distant learning, and how do we support everybody throughout this. And ACSA will always have a seat at the table. We thank Wes for his leadership and the team and all of our employees at ACSA. And your membership matters, because this is how we get the work done. So stay tuned, let's stay connected, and never forget that we're in this together.
Erin.
Like the other panelists, I believe ACSA has done a great job with just informing school leaders on, what to consider and what to think about, and also providing guidance, and also highlighting those best practices that many of our school districts are doing as well, whether it's certain delivery of Chromebooks or technology or meals or whatever that may be, highlighting the great things that are happening within this great organization. I think even more so, the focus, we're going to have to advocate. We're going to have to advocate for funding to ensure that all students are put in the best position to be academically sound. This is what worries. I know that with many folks, with funding maybe not coming in as we expected, or maybe as expected now due to the downturn in economics with the nation and with California. But there's so much work around advocacy that we can do to ensure that our students are protected, and that we have enough funding and support for our administrators and our educators to work with students and help students. Self-care is significant and huge. We always talk about this, right? If we don't take care of ourselves, then we're not going to be able to take care of students. I am constantly communicating with support staff, with teachers, just to check on them. And I ask them to do the same for me, just to make sure that I'm okay, as we're so much involved in the work that we're doing. But hearing some of the things that they're going through, right? They're teaching kids, right? I'm teaching my kids at home, also doing the work. They're also teaching other students. Some of our folks are not well. The reality of COVID-19 is that we have many families, many educators, many colleagues, many friends who have lost loved ones to the COVID-19. We have many colleagues, many friends who have family members who are in the hospital due to COVID-19, or who are recovering from COVID-19, who have lost their jobs to the COVID-19. So you have many families who are stressed and worried at this time. So providing best practices, providing tools, providing resources for our staff, I think is very important this time as well. And also coming back, how are we going to reopen schools? I was so happy to hear Dr. Wes Smith speak about the task force, the reopening task force that has been created to provide guidance for our school superintendents and district leaders to reopen schools. So what is the best way to do that from an equity standpoint and just from a learning and best practice standpoint? So these are some things that we have to consider, but funding and advocacy for our students should be at the forefront of everything. And we have to make sure that it's at the forefront of every legislation piece that comes out as well, because without that, our students are hurt without it.
And Ed.
I think just piggybacking on what Erin and everyone else was saying, we have to continue to support our families, our schools, our members. And, this just came up in a staff meeting we had where one of the teachers was talking about how frustrated she was about, the kids not doing their work. And we just have to realize that some of these families, their parents, they don't have jobs right now. They've lost their income. They've had family members that have gotten sick, or some have passed away. It is very, very difficult. So I think we have to focus on two things. How do we support schools, families, communities, districts right now? And then how do we look at reopening? And I think in terms of the support, the best way is coming back to asking them, task force is good, but the task force is good, or we can just ask them what they need. It's important. I come back to when I was one of my schools a while ago, this teacher came up to me in the middle of the staff meeting, huge staff meeting, like 100 people. She said, "You don't support teachers?" And I looked at her and said, "I don't support you." So I'm in your classroom all the time. I send you on professional development all the time. I give you funding. How do I not support you? Support isn't support unless it feels like support. So we need to ask, actually, what do these families need? What do these school districts need? And that's how we can support them. That's important.
All right, and folks, as we move through to these next questions, I'll ask you to keep your responses to 60 seconds or less. Jonathon, you'll start here with question 6. How has the role of the school leader changed since you've been an educator?
But more than ever before, the focus has to stay on our students' well-being and safety and their academic achievement, and it should always be at the forefront of everything that we do. We have to ensure that our students have equity of service and materials so that they can have that world-class education. We live in a world that doesn't always put our students first, but since we are in this vocation, we call this leadership. We are here to embrace these challenges and to bring them to our discussions at the state level and bring it back here at the local level, and with all the trainings that we could possibly do to support our students. And the good news is that we have amazing leaders up and down this state. So go ahead and give yourself a shout out. So we need to, to continue our current practices with our instructional leaders and keep this going forward, right? For our 6.3 million students. And it's always been about service leadership. So we are charged to lift our colleagues up so that they can do the same for our students. And I'm not thinking there's much has changed in the relationship piece, but the accountability piece is much more there. And the focus of our kids that are at risk is much more there for us now. And we need to be transparent and held accountable. So we will do that for our homeless students, our language learners, our students with special needs, and with equity of service and access to opportunity at the forefront. So we have more laws than ever before and the mandates than ever before, but what should not change is that we continue to make decisions that are based on what's best for our students, and so that they have a voice and best practice. We should be looking to attract the very best people we could put in front of our students in the classroom, around our schools, and in leadership positions.
Erin.
Just quickly, I think our role has changed. We've become more first responders. We've become counselors. We've become therapists. We've seen students who are dealing with social pressures that have influenced our day-to-day work. We've seen student suicide rates increase. They're at an all-time high, even after COVID-19. We've seen certain epidemics like vaping and things of that nature that have ravaged our school communities. And then mental health and trauma has really infiltrated its way into our school systems. PTSD, but some things that our students are going through, which has really called for our teachers to be trained in more mental health awareness, trauma-informed practices, restorative justice. I mean, there's so many ways that our educational system has changed and that I think funding and certain systems have not caught up with. So for me, it's even from an advocacy standpoint, how do we work with our administration programs to provide more student support services, curriculum in their programs to help our teachers, to help our administrators as they, step into new positions or step into other types of positions within the school system. We have not trained them to properly handle and take care of students, especially now as they're dealing with more of these situations. So we've seen so many changes just based on that, but education leaders are juggling many different responsibilities and jobs on top of ensuring that accountability is taken care of as well.
Ed.
Yeah, it's interesting when I think of when I became an educator and when I became a school leader, there's a difference. And I think when I look back to my first job as an administrator, I was thinking this is an impossible job. When I became a principal, I thought I'd be easily the best principal in the world, and I realized this is an impossible job. I think in some ways we have impossible jobs. We have to be everything to everyone, and that is difficult. And I think maybe it didn't used to be so much so back on. So everything Erin said is true. We are all these things to all people, and that's the challenge, right? To keep focusing on what do we do to support kids, to support teachers that make the biggest difference in the classroom with all these other pieces of the puzzle. And if we keep that focus, I think we'll be good. But this is what has changed. There is just so much more now than there was before. And it's a challenge, but I think it's a good challenge. And that's what's changed, I believe.
And Joe.
So I'm going to maybe rush through. I had a few of these outlined. I'm going to just stick to two of them. I think one of the biggest changes I witnessed in my career is a shift from a largely kind of one-size-fits-all evaluation model to one of more coaching and facilitation. As a beginning teacher, there wasn't a lot of formative feedback during my evaluation process. But as I transitioned into a site and now a central office leader, I've realized the importance of coaching and supporting adults and providing formative feedback. It has a multiplier effect. That by coaching teachers and developing co-administrators, we produce better outcomes for all kids. That's a real fundamental change. I think the way we digest and make meaning of data has changed a great deal, but I'm going to focus on the third one I had outlined, which I think is probably the most significant. We've come from a history of systems of tracking and academic silos to really more of a focus on access and equity. During my 15 years as a site principal, I had a lot of conversations about how educators have, perhaps unintentionally, perpetuated systems that largely focus on adult convenience. More than ever before, school leaders have got to both examine and boldly confront systems that limit access and opportunities to their students. I know how challenging it is to shift school culture, how critical it is to prepare school leaders with the tools they need to lead tough conversations that put students first.
All right, we're going to hit question 7. And again, we want to thank our viewers who are participating with us live. We are going to go a few minutes past the hour. So I just want to let you know about that as we move over to question 7. And Erin is going to start us off on that one. Erin, the question is, how can ACSA continue to support educators and school leaders?
Okay, so I'm going to try to say this as quickly as possible because I know that we're running out of time, but I just think that during this unprecedented time, I believe foremost among the concerns of local school leaders and educators in responding to this crisis, it's just protecting their students' health, they're meeting their food needs and providing learning services to the maximum extent possible. So for me, as far as that support, I see that ACSA should support educators by advocating for pre-K through 12 education and funding that will supplement, not supplant, what we currently have. When you look at, anywhere from waiving school meal requirements, from temporarily waiving ACSA assessments and accountability requirements. We talked about additional rounds of funding that's going to be needed. We all talked about how it's just woefully underfunded. We're going to need more funding to help us do this work. IDEA flexibility. We heard from our Secretary of Education, Bessie DeVos, and how she stated that there are no waivers needed at this time. I think that special education administrators would state otherwise. And also the funding within Title I for our homeless education students and for many other students who fall within that bucket within Title I. So much more funding is going to be needed to support their needs, and especially with mental health. And with our teachers, with support just for professional development, especially as we move more into online distancing. We're not sure what that's going to look like in the fall or when schools are going to actually open up. So we may have to extend, our distance learning options and train our teachers to be better at what they're doing now. And then we have Title V, for our rural districts. I really empathize with our rural districts right now. We need more money that's going to support them. In so many ways. We have rural districts who, can afford to pay for maybe some of the best teachers, maybe because salary-wise, they're significantly low. But we also need more support for students in that area as we have resources that are scattered and they're not able to provide those resources there as well. This is what I see as far as that standpoint. I mean, there's so many more, but, due to time limitations, I'll leave it at that.
Ed.
Yeah, I think all those things Erin said are great. I think we can think about what we need and what we think we need to support our schools and our families and our districts. But I think working through our regions and getting actually from the horse's mouth, from schools, from superintendents, school districts, principals, families, like if we can figure out what they need and we can provide that, I think that's the best thing. Often when a new principal or new superintendent takes office, they'll do a listening tour, right? Where they'll go around, have lots of town halls, figure out what we need. I think we need to do the same thing. We need to figure out what people need and get input from them as best we can. One of the things we've learned, I think, from all the online work is how to get communications back and forth. I think this is something we have to do because we can see from firsthand knowledge what we think we need to do. And of course, funding is a huge part of it. But I think reaching out to folks and seeing what they need from ACSA and what they need us to provide, I think that's a really great place to start.
And Joe.
Well, because ACSA's perspective is informed by the collective experience of school leaders throughout the state, I really feel like it's uniquely qualified to advocate for them, largely by staying the course. ACSA's our voice at the state level, in the state capitol, within the Department of Education. And I think that's the main reason why members become members, because we all want to feel like our voices are heard beyond our school and district boundaries. Another strong support is member services, which provide timely and critical support to educators and school leaders as well. Whether it's providing tools through ACSA's Resource Hub or coordinating the support of an ACSA mentor or rallying support during a crisis or natural disaster. Marguerite and her team do amazing work. I think the next area for ACSA to become an indispensable resource is really in guiding in the training of mental wellness. Regularly reminding educators, as Erin pointed out, the importance of self-care. Essentially, that they need to put their air masks on first if they're to provide meaningful support to their learning communities. And finally, by assisting members as they analyze their school or district's current capacity for student support. I think these services are going to be undoubtedly going to improve outcomes for students, and they are critical for the adults that serve them.
And Jonathon.
I think it begins knowing your why, and our why is our mission statement, and the last part of it supporting and inspiring our educational leaders to meet the diverse needs of our students, and then knowing that you align that with our strategic plan. So our membership development and support, we do that through professional development, having pathways, credentialing, multiple platforms for us to network. And we do that by sticking together, and we look at the growth in educational leadership, and we stay active in our roles, not just at our sites, but also in our regions. And then, you know, when I was in Region 3, you know, bringing Elk Grove, one of the largest school districts, back into the to region as a membership platform, they have done amazing work and have been at forefront in education for years, but ACSA was not part of their plan. And so we were able to bring them on board, and they have blossomed. And I think that's just the part of the networking that allows people to build relationships and to support our students from across this great state. And, you know, the other part of our strategic plan is the advocacy and influence, so that when we want to increase funding or look at things that we need to focus on right now with this pandemic, we have to have people at the Capitol that will do that. And then we share our stories. The people in these offices in the government need to know why that access to Wi-Fi allows a student to compete and feel engaged and supported. And then the last part of our strategic plan is the organization development and sustainability. And then we do that by aligning all of our practices together, and we look at our best practices and we share them with each other, and we motivate and inspire so that we can see the leadership that's all around us. And you know, we really want to be looking at our equity as far as in our diversity in our leadership, and we've come a long ways. One of our previous questions is, how much have we changed? Well, we've changed, but we still have a long way to go when it comes to equity and the diversity of our leadership, but we're going to get there. And it comes back to our strategic plan and knowing our why. So let's continue to focus on maintaining those positive relationships within this organization and those with our partners at CSBA, CSCA, CTA, FICMAT, you know, school services, CALSA, CASBO, the list goes on, so we can secure a great future for our students and our membership.
All right, and question 8, Ed, you'll be our first responder here. Where do you see ACSA 5 years from now?
I think ACSA should continue the work we've been doing, and sort of what Joe said, stay the course. We need to continue looking at our strategic plan and providing services to our school districts, and ultimately to their schools and the families that they serve. I think this is important. We need to keep that focus. I think the online exploration that we've all been forced to encounter this last 6 weeks, this can be actually a starting point for us. We can do more and more online with professional development training, which is good. And I think we need to continue our focus on kids and closing gaps. We have a lot of work to do. And I would hope that in 5 years, we would be closer to eliminating some of the gaps that are just so glaring throughout our urban and rural and suburban areas, in terms of the achievement gap with kids, the technology gap which we're facing, funding gaps between California and the other states. Closing these gaps, I hope we would be closer than we are now. And I think that's the work we are still going to be doing in 5 years, but I hope we're going to be closer to meeting those goals than we have been.
And Joe?
Well, this is probably the toughest question of all because things are changing so quickly at the moment. But I believe the next 5 years will bring some things that we can reasonably predict today. I believe that ACSA's reputation for doing what's right for students will only enhance our legislative influence, not just at the state level, but at the federal level. I predict that while ACSA will continue to be a premier organization for school leaders, there will be a need for expanded services for both aspiring and retired administrators. I think we've always had member classifications in those areas, but I can imagine an expansion in the services to both groups and perhaps a more concerted effort to include those members in the work in the coming years, such that this organization develops a reputation for truly engaging members from like twinkle to wrinkle. I hope that doesn't offend my retired colleagues. Finally, I predict that ACSA is going to extend their equity and diversity efforts. I want them to help sharpen the equity lenses for members by promoting practices that serve to not only increase student achievement for underserved students, but also grow the diversity of our membership. ACSA has the human capital and the expertise to cultivate a world-class aspiring administrator program and the capacity to provide really targeted support, recruitment, mentorship, scholarships, networking opportunities to candidates who will further diversify our leadership ranks. If the last 6 weeks have taught us anything, it's that flexibility is a really invaluable asset. But as we navigate turbulent times, we have to share a common vision of what's best for the students we serve and their families, but keeping in mind the needs of the both current and potential ACSA members.
And Jonathon.
So I think as we rise together, we are going to be the healthiest organization around, both physically, because I think we do need to have that wellness program going for us as well. We talk about the work-life balance, and it really should be, like Wes says, that life-work balance. And I believe we're going to have 25,000 members in 5 years. And why? Because I think of all the encouraging things that I'm seeing around us up and down the state. I think our diversity will be our strength. I see hundreds of superintendents in 5 years who will look like our students, and they deserve to see people that look like them in front of them. And we will do that by lifting our folks up in all the ways that we can through the different committees and networking that we do that ensures that our diversity is our strength. And so by giving our students a voice, we'll have them become more educational leaders. And that's why I think we're going to grow, because they're going to see that their influence has made a big difference in what we can do to provide a world-class education for all of our students in California. And we'll commit to excellence, and we're going to push our government to fund education, to find and close the opportunity gap so that our students of promise will have a chance to follow their dreams just like we have. And I just want to see each and every one of you who are watching this achieve your hopes and dreams and your growth in leadership, and continue that growth mindset. And that, if nothing else, is this COVID-19 has taught each and every one of us that we are going to be pushed, but that's okay. When we see a storm, we run to it in ACSA. We don't run away from it. And together we will weather this storm. So when you became a leader, you accepted this challenge, and with that comes that growth mindset, like I just said. So we should always stay connected with each other, wanting more for our students and each other, and that's what ACSA is all about. So let's do this for our students, let's do this for each other, and together we will rise.
And Erin.
So ACSA has a burgeoning influence and also relentless pursuit of equity and advocacy on behalf of California's 6 million plus students. But even with ACSA's influential voice, educational leaders face so many challenging times ahead. I mean, we talked about some of those issues with our trauma disorders and other mental health issues, which are at an all-time high. We have our alternative, charter, and rural schools who are struggling to meet certain requirements, such as a college and career indicator, and other redesigned accountability measures. And with more students who are living in poverty, right, our low SES students, our educational system continues to face great strain. So with that being said, ACSA would need to continue to elevate its advocacy at the state and federal levels. I know Adonai Mack has been doing a great job just reaching out to legislators, more so in DC from that federal level, just to say, you know what, these are California's needs. How can you help California students? allowing students to voice their opinions. I mean, our students are ready for a transformation. We've heard just kind of statewide students have advocated, maybe that's, with walkouts or with demonstrations, or just a certain ask from their district leaders and from the community. I think we need to pull more of our students in the conversations as well, bring them into the fold, and also creating more opportunities for our classified members and also our retirees to be more a part of the conversation. So whether that's being more a part of conferences, volunteering more of a higher and deeper level, just something that we should consider, because our retirees, I can tell you, have that institutional knowledge. It can also help mentor ACSA members like myself. I mean, I still have great ACSA mentors who are retirees that I connect with all the time, so I can learn more about education and how to pursue certain goals and aspirations. So I think that's something that ACSA has to consider as well. Just take its advocacy to a different level, just elevate that advocacy.
All right, and I'm going to give our 4 candidates a couple of seconds here to think about these 2 questions that have come in so that we're not spraying it on them. And then for our viewers, I'll give you a little bit of information. One of them comes in from Rocio Munoz. Rocio asks, how has your involvement in ACSA made a difference in your district, charter, or region? And the second question comes in from board member Victor Thompson. Victor asks, how will you continue the work for State Equity Committee, now led by Adne Mack? So I'll let you guys think about those 2 questions and an answer that you can have deliver in about 30 seconds. For our viewers at home, we definitely want to thank you for having been with us today. For those of you who may have come in after the show started, or those of you who had to leave while the show was going on, this candidate forum will be on the ACSA Resource Hub. You can access the Resource Hub from the homepage of the ACSA website at ACSA.org. There's a box there that you can click on. There's also the hamburger menu at the top left. If you click on there, there's a link to the Resource Hub. Or you can type in the URL, which is content.axa.org. You can find the candidate forum there. We invite you to watch it. We invite you to send it out to your regions as well. So here's what we will do. We will hit Rocio Munoz's question first. And again, we'll go in alphabetical order here. Again, the question, and Joe, you'll be the first to respond. How has your involvement in ACSA made a difference in your district, charter, or region?
I wish I had some ACSA Region 18 members to answer that question for me, because I only have my sense of objectivity on this. And I highlighted at the beginning of this webinar that I played a lot of roles in Region 18, from committee and council work to being the vice president of legislative action, the region president, and now the state board representative. My role there is such a huge privilege and responsibility to be the conduit between the region and the council committee, or the region and the state board, or the region and the legislative, the legislators that we are going to visit on legislative action day. So I would hope that Region 18 members would say that Joe Austin has given a lot to Region 18, and that I have kind of stepped up to the plate whenever they've challenged me to help make things better here.
Jonathan.
I think it's like I said earlier, it's that 2-way relationship. You get from ACSA, but you also give to ACSA, and that's supporting your district and your charter. So like here in Milpitas, our district is a charter, and we have some amazing young leaders that are doing great work to share what the resources that ACSA is providing and connecting us to those resources. I sit on the HR Council for Region 8, and I just met with our Sacramento, our Region 8 HR cohorts today, just to share the information. And they look to you for leadership, but I look to them for leadership as well, because we're learning from each other. And when I was in Region 2, they asked me to be their past president just to keep things connected, because I had that experience. And I already talked to you about Region 3, but I think it's that connecting your district to the bigger picture. Because it's so hard to be an educational leader, and your focus should be on your school and your department, and I get that. But with ACSA support, we have other opportunities to grow in this profession, but also find other people that have that same concern and worry that you can reach out. And I think that's something that we sometimes forget, that we're not alone. There are so many people when you get involved with ACSA that you can reach out to. And, I know all 4 of the candidates because of ACSA. Erin's been the newest person to get to know, but she's been an amazing asset to my growth and leadership, but so is Joe and Ed. And I think it's just powerful that we support ACSA and we share that knowledge with others. And then when I get to that point of retirement, just like the other folks that that have been mentor to us, we never stop being ACSA. So ACSA will be here for a long time.
Erin.
I think when you look at ACSA, ACSA has allowed just me personally to see things from a macro perspective. So not just be so laser focused per se on my district, but to look at the situation from its entirety, right? So we know that it affects not just Long Beach Unified School District students, but students, period. So it's helped me understand that, but also to find ways to then look at things from a unique perspective based on the community within Long Beach to see how we can help families. So I can tell you with the Educational Options Council, especially with meeting with some of the legislators, just to have them listen to the needs of students. Like I say, I've been apprised of legislation that's in the pipeline, and that's allowed me from a district standpoint to prepare and create systems, whether it's new or just update systems that we have to ensure that we're aligned with ed code, with procedures, but that we're also looking at things from an equitable lens. And then from a regional standpoint, just those best practices as we're working with our colleagues and learning things, right? If I'm having a hard time, putting together a form, maybe for our foster youth or for our homeless youth, maybe it's a school of origin plan that's going to help our students get to school. I can tap into one of my regional members or somebody from my council to say, what, have you delved into this yet? And if you can't, would you mind sending me something just so I can begin to prepare something better for my students as well. So coming from that angle, ACSA has been extremely monumental for me in helping with my council members, my district, and also my region, just for us getting together, understanding the task at hand, and being able to be prepared, to be proactive instead of reactive in helping and serving our students.
And Ed.
I think probably the main thing, it was admittedly more noticeable when I was on the board because I was privy to so much information, bringing that information from the statewide to our local area. In LAUSD, we are our own, mostly our own region and charter. But we are able to, as an ACSA member, I was able to bring information to everyone and then kind of share it out with all of our schools, our district, our principals. And I think that has probably been the most helpful. Kind of like now, I'm sure like all of you, I've been on so many different Zoom calls with other groups, job alike, with other principals or whatever, across districts, across the state, and just bringing best practices to the table in my region. This is what they're doing over at this school. This is what they're doing at that, in addition to what is the latest about advocacy, what is the latest legislation, and where are we, just because that's a lot of information for the average person to digest and able to bring that to them. I think it's probably been the most helpful, for my community.
And our final question of the afternoon again comes in from Victor Thompson, ACSA board member Victor Thompson. He asks, how will you continue the work of the State Equity Committee, now led by Adne Mack? So I will have Jonathon be the first one to answer this question.
Thank you, Victor, for asking that question because it's so important. And, like I said, that great work that Weatherspoon and Jarvis has done what needs to continue. And we do have people in that place. And by lifting leaders of various ethnicities and gender and sexual orientation, we will enhance our leadership and unique perspectives and insights because of we listening to them. And then how we treat each other will demonstrate to our students our commitment to diversity and equity. So I think we have to have new and fresh faces at the table, but we have to push ourselves and have those uncomfortable conversations, right? Because sometimes you know, we talk about white privilege and what have you, and people don't understand that with that comes an inherent privilege, and we don't always notice that. So we need to lift people up and have those courageous conversations so that we can make sure that when decisions are made or opportunities present themselves, that we are there for each other at all times. And so it's a task force that I know Adnai will do a great job. There are people that I know Toby, it would be a great asset to this program. And so together, you know, we will ensure that the equity and service is paramount in what we do, because people are watching us and our students deserve that.
Erin.
I think the continuing to collaborate with the Equity Committee. I know that's something that the Educational Options Council does extremely well, and not just with the Equity Committee, with many other committees and councils within ACSA. Having those courageous conversations, as Jonathan stated, we can't be afraid to discuss the challenges and the task at hand. I think for so many years, you know, educators sometimes have been kind of standoffish and may not have wanted to address certain disparities just kind of head on, but we have to stop that. We have to talk about the disparities between our pronounced groups. I can tell as an African-American woman, not that I'm singling out, you know, African-American boys and girls, but there's an issue. There's an issue with our Latinx population. There's an issue with our Pacific Islanders when it comes to academics and chronic absenteeism, suspension, and things of that nature. We have to be open to discussing that, and people have to be open to hearing that as well. The time for being afraid, the time for being standoffish has to be over. We have to be those equity warriors that our students are counting on in order to mitigate and to eliminate those opportunity gaps. So as far as working with the Equity Committee, I would love to continue having those conversations. And I can be very honest, my conversations are going to continue, whether or not I'm honored with being ACSA Vice President, because I am so strongly working to mitigate those disparities and also having conversations. So that's how I see the work ahead. Thank you, Dr. Thompson, Region 14, for that question.
And Ed.
Okay, great question. Again, I think working alongside Adnai is important to continue the work and just to be the model, be the example. What are we doing? What are we doing at our school districts? What are we doing at our schools to continue to this work of the Equity Committee? What are we doing to provide equity for all of our students in our communities? What are we doing? We're the model. And I think it needs to start there. And I think also we need to reach out and see what we can do to help schools and districts. And I think any work that the committee needs in terms of gathering information, focus groups, presenting model programs, this is what we should be doing. It's really, really important work.
And Joe.
Well, I'll start by thanking Victor for the question. I've never been a part of a conversation or part of a group conversation with Victor where he did not take an opportunity to kind of step into the gap and advocate for students on the equity front. So he is a true equity champion, and I appreciate that. I'll say that I was sad to see Dr. Williams depart. I'm Facebook friends with her. I know she's drinking from a fire hose in Adelante and doing the most to kind of get her family grounded in this wild, crazy time, and also lead the work there. I was a part of her unconscious bias training in the fall and really appreciated that as a guy who's continually trying to sharpen his own equity lens. The artful way that she brought a diverse group of learners together to kind of do that work. I will say that, you know, Adnai was in the room for that, and Adnai was in the room for the Mental Wellness Task Force, where the majority of students, or the disproportionate impact on students who are coming from underserved communities or have adverse childhood experiences. So you can't. I'm not sad that Adnai is taking the lead on this. You want something done, you give it to the busiest guy in the room, and that's Adnai. So I think that work has to continue. I think we have sort of admired this problem for too long, and I'm committed to kind of perpetuating that work and would be thrilled for an opportunity to lead it.
All right, folks, and we have hit the last couple of minutes here of our ACSA Candidate Forum, we do want to give our 4 candidates an opportunity for some closing remarks as we near the end of our show. Let's see, how about if we start with Joe Austin in alphabetical order? So Joe, your final comments.
This has been a huge leap of faith for me, that you throw your hat in the ring for something like this. And then you're surrounded by a field of super qualified candidates, all who bring their own unique experience and education to bear. It's humbling. It's truly humbling. I would be honored to serve ACSA in a bigger capacity than I have up to this point. I feel like I have been on a trajectory that has led me to this place. But as Erin put it earlier, I think eloquently, just honored to be in the ranks of such qualified leadership. And it just makes my heart sing that the future for this organization is as bright as it obviously is.
And Jonathon.
Again, like Joe said, and Erin and Ed, it's been humbling sitting beside you guys in the fall and working together. And then here we are today doing Google Meets or Zoom with COVID-19. What a whirlwind. Each of us brings a unique perspective to leadership, and I think collectively you can't go wrong, right? So I'm just so inspired by the group. I want this opportunity only so that I can give back, and I want to be a conduit of listening and support to our members, and again, giving our students more voice and showcasing them so that people can see that we are doing great work up and down this state. And I know that we need to look at things through an equity lens and champion the diversity of our leadership and ensure that that continues for years to come, and there's much work to do. I'm inspired each and every day by the people I get to serve here in Milpitas. They teach me, they humble me, they encourage me, they lift me up, and I hope I am doing the same for them. And in the role of Vice President, it would be an honor to represent the 18,000 members that we have now, and that's kind of scary when you think about it. And if you're new to ACSA, I feel that there's so much for you, that we need you, that your voice matters too. And we want you to be part of our ongoing mission, which is being an excellent organization for the betterment of our students here in California. So with your support, we can do that, and I thank you. And like the catchphrase says, together we rise, and I want to be that person for you. And I look forward to continuing this message in days to come. Thank you.
Erin.
So before COVID-19, we had our challenges, we had our issues. Now, kind of amidst COVID-19, during this unprecedented pandemic, we still have our challenges, but I believe that we have this opportunity to rethink education. With No Child Left Behind and other education reforms, they have attempted to build a 21st century education system. And the results have really not been impressive, especially for many of our students who are struggling, living in poverty or within those pronounced groups. But the best that can come out of this new paradigm shift in terms of the way in which we look at education depends on well-being and success. It depends on more than just schooling. We need to look holistically at the entirety of students' lives in order for children to come to school ready to learn. And we need more of an array of essential supports and opportunities outside of school. So although we're making strides in providing many of these things, we still have a long way to go. So we are still more than ever a state and nation at risk. But colleagues and friends, we desperately need another paradigm shift in education, where we rethink our goals, our hope, our future for education, which have been recapitulated in slogans such as No Child Left Behind, Every Student, Every Day, and I think my new favorite, All Means All. We must elevate our advocacy to develop a system that has the capacity to deliver on ACSA's promise of equity for California's 6 million plus students. Now, there will be challenges and mistakes that we make as we travel through these uncharted waters, but I believe our opportunity is now. And this is why I'm a candidate for Vice President. Again, my name is Erin Simon, and it is with profound gratitude and great humility that I speak to you today and discuss to you more thoughts around my candidacy. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And finally today, Ed. And Ed, you'll want to unmute yourself.
Got it.
There we go.
So I get the final word. So I'm very, very humbled and honored to be with such a great slate of candidates. And thank you so much for everyone's input. And thank you, Naj, and thank you for the ACSA team for setting up our great forum today. And I'm just going to defer back to what my kids told me preparing for today. My daughter was a professor at USC. She said, listen and speak slowly. So I'm hoping to do the same as a vice president. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to, if you look in back of me, this is actually a virtual background of my actual office at work. And there's a sign on the wall that says, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. And this has sort of been my guiding phrase for my entire career back when I started as a middle school teacher at Brendo Middle School. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. And I think we can actually achieve anything we set our minds to. And as ACSA, I think we can close gaps. I think we can move forward. And I'm excited about being part of that process. And I would love to be part of that lever that moves our system forward so we close gaps for all kids, whether they be income gaps, whether they be achievement gaps, whether it be the technology gaps or health gaps. We got to close the gaps. And I think we're on the way. And I'm looking forward to that process. And so thank you for your support and possibly your vote to all of our viewers out there. Thanks.
And thank you guys so much. I want to thank Joe and Erin and Jonathan and Ed so much for joining us today. And I want to thank all of our viewers for participating today. Again, if you joined us a little bit later on, or if you were only able to see part of the show, a recorded edition of this show will be on the ACSA Resource Hub a little bit later on this week. You can access that from the website, or you can go to content.acsa.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for your service to students. Have a great night.
Thanks so much, guys. Really
Take
appreciate it.
care. Stay
Bye.
safe.